Apparently, pro-Iranian militias in Iraq warned U.S. troops not to use their airspace for attacks against Iran.
Back in April
And also simultaneously, Hezbollah started landing some shots on northern Israel. I don't know. I don't know how valid and verified that information is. There's some videos that have come out, but videos always come out. I don't know what this means, but people are claiming that the Iron Dome's not working. So anyway, damn, they woke up Wolf from his sleep.
Just another element in potential escalation of what's happening, of what could happen.
As you know, Nick, we're sitting right in Tel Aviv right now. We're sitting in Tel Aviv right now. And if you take a look at the Mediterranean, which is right over there, the U.S. has moved aircraft carrier battle groups, destroyers, other military hardware very, very close to what's going on right now. And potentially this represents, for the U.S., a direct involvement, God forbid, if this should escalate into some sort of regional war.
Oh, absolutely. The United States would be providing part of the missile defense shield for Israel to protect Israel from Iran's attack. And we saw this happen exactly back in April. I think the United States was credited for bringing down at least 70 of the drones, cruise and ballistic missiles that were fired into Israel, and was credited with being a significant part of showing Iran that they couldn't get through and defending Israel and its citizens.
And we're getting some major breaking news right now. Nick, stand by. The Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, is now telling CNN that around 30 rockets were just launched from Lebanon. They will release a statement very, very shortly with details. But this is a potentially significant development. Those rockets coming from South Lebanon, and Hezbollah has a lot of rockets. Iranian-backed Hezbollah, it's a proxy of Iran right now, launching some 30 rockets directly into Israel and hitting various targets in northern Israel.
And one of the locations we've heard, we're still running down the information, Wolf, so I should just add caution to this, but one of the locations we've heard that those rockets came towards is a town of Nahariya. It's on the coast, just like Tel Aviv. It's about 6 miles from the border with Lebanon. Interestingly, that town has not evacuated its population like the tens of thousands of others Israelis who've been evacuated from towns that close to the border in northern Israel. They're still there. There's an estimated 77,000 people still living in that town. 30 missiles fired on a densely populated town can be very significant. It can potentially have the possibility of causing civilian casualties. When we think about all the other salvos of Hezbollah rockets that are fired across the border, they're relatively short range. They're often targeted at Israeli defense infrastructure or some of the towns, but all of those locations are very sparsely populated because...
Wonder why they don't say USA backed Israel like they do Iran backed Hezbollah? Yeah, because it's a given. Also, it's not even USA. You don't say USA back Wyoming.
We'll get. That appears to show
it's
that
just Wyoming.
Hezbollah has targeted with 30 rockets a town of 77,000 civilians.
Nahariya, I've been there many times, just north, as you point out, of Haifa, between Haifa and Lebanon. It's a city. It's a big city. And as you correctly also point out, the residents of Nahariya, unlike other towns in northern Israel, closer to the Lebanese border, Kiryat Shmona and these other towns, all of them have been evacuated. Tens of thousands of Israelis and their families have been forced to move south to safety. But Nahariya, the people there are still there. And if a barrage of rockets is now coming in from South Lebanon, from Hezbollah into Nahariya, that potentially could result in a major Israeli retaliatory strike as well. We'll monitor this very, very closely. We're getting new information from the IDF as we speak. Nick, thanks very, very much. We're following all of the breaking news, and we'll be right back.
My goat Wolf is there, dude. He'll defend Israel himself, okay? Fun fact, Wolf Blitzer used to do comms for APAC. Just neither here nor there. Just a fun little tidbit that I like to throw out there. That's my goat. Put some respect on it. But, you know, it is weird that he was, like, doing PR for APAC, and now he is the unbiased voice in the most trusted name in news. Israel's Iron Dome risks being overwhelmed in an all-out war with Hezbollah, says the United States in an article that was over a month ago. I mean, they didn't overwhelm the Iron Dome this time, though. They didn't. I don't think they launched like that many missiles. What? Yo, Big Haas, hope you're moisturizing around your shoulders to help avoid deep stretch marks from fast, intense gains. Good job on the progress. Is an Iron Dome something endgame like boss tier loot? Who else has one? Yeah, it's boss tier loot. That's a good one. Bunch of angles of the rockets hitting. I am waiting on CNN. Islamic Resistance Lebanon announces targeting the newly established headquarters of the 146th Division in Jatoun. northern Palestine with volleys of Katyusha rockets in response to the Israeli enemy's attacks on the steadfast southern villages and safe homes, especially in the town of Marub. Iran respected the Olympic break. Now is game on. No, I don't think they didn't do this because of the Olympics, bro. Yeah, they were like, yeah, that's because they made that banger blood on his hands ad instead. Timing of this upload from CNN. Bro, I can't believe they sent this motherfucker out there, bro.
Returning now to the Middle East, CNN analyst and Axios.
He's not in Israel, is he? There's no way they were like, yo, Wolf, you gotta go there, bro. They were like, Wolf, any moment now, they're gonna cook Israel, bro. You gotta go out there. What the bro, chill. Let the man breathe, dude.
This reporter Barak Ravid is now reporting that Iran has indeed decided to directly attack Israel. And though it's not clear when that might happen or what.
Wolf, we heard that the peace talks are gonna fucking fall aside. Okay, we gotta get you out there.
Form it would take. The attack could come, he reports, as soon as in the next few days. With us now, CNN military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, and former State Department Middle East negotiator Aaron David Miller. General, starting with you, what do you expect from Iran as compared to the drone and multi-missile attacks of 300 rockets and missiles that were directed towards Israel back in April from Iran, directly from Iranian territory? Do you expect something similar or something different?
You know, Wolf, you can't really say. It could be a spectrum along that line. Anything from a massive attack, not only from Iran, but also in coordination with Hezbollah and with other forces in the area, the PMF forces in Syria and Iraq, as well as the Houthis in Yemen. Or could we see just a kinetic strike that's precision and surgical in nature to show Israel and for Iran to show their own population that they are doing something about what struck in Tehran? So it could be anywhere between those two extremes, but I think they have to do something just to appease their own population, but also to show Israel that they are ready to confront them. But anything that they do could certainly expand this region into a catastrophic conflict.
And that's certainly what Israeli military officials are bracing for right now, as I can tell you based on briefings that I've had over the past few days. Aaron, there's been some confusion today, as you know, over how Hamas is treating Thursday's scheduled ceasefire hostage release talks. What's your read on the statement they put out earlier today?
You know, the worst thing in a negotiation, Wolf, is to tell your negotiating partners that you're in a hurry. And I suspect part of Hamas's calculation is they know that Biden's clock, Netanyahu's clock, and their own clock are not really in sync. The administration wants this done yesterday, and they're evidencing all sorts of signs which are completely understandable.
This video is from literally 5 minutes ago. They just uploaded it.
Given how fraught the situation is for the hostages and the prospects of an escalation on the northern front. They know if they could get a ceasefire, it would also calm down the north. The problem is that the Biden clock is not synced, it seems to me, either with the Netanyahu clock or...
This is the Saul Goodman come over. Bro, this literally is Saul Goodman after he like trekked the desert. This is literally Saul Goodman going through the fucking desert, bro. After they try to intercept him.
Or the Sinwar clock. And Yahya Sinwar, ensconced in some tunnel somewhere, is making decisions based on what he considers to be Hamas's needs and requirements. And those require a true cessation of military activity by the Israelis, and Benjamin Netanyahu, for his own understandable reasons, are not prepared to agree. So I think on this one, Wolf, that Hamas ultimately will show for Thursday's meeting if the whole thing is not undermined by a major Hezbollah or Iranian strike sometime in the next 72 hours.
Which is certainly possible. General Hertling, is there a scenario you can foresee where Iran launches its retaliatory attack against Israel in the coming days and the region still manages manages to avert a much wider regional war. What needs to happen for that to be how this goes?
Yeah, certainly, Wolf, there is that potential, and it would be dependent on Iran holding their fire, literally not conducting the kind of large-scale attack they held last time, where a lot of Israeli citizens could be hurt or killed. If that happens, what I'd say is Katie, bar the door. If Israel is struck to the point where there are multiple casualties or a lot of deaths.
Yeah, it's always, we always have to expect Iran, who also on the same word, also in the same conversation we refer to as barbaric savages and monstrous pieces of shit, but it's up to them to demonstrate restraint. It's never up to Israel to demonstrate restraint. You know what I mean? Like, Israel does not have to be restrained. No one can contain them. But Iran, those monsters, those barbarians, they have to be restrained. They better not be over the top.
I think we're going to see that conflict spin out of control. That's the part where I'm very concerned, because it has to do with not only what Iran's action will be, but as Aaron David just said, also what Hezbollah and Hamas will do to contribute to this. But it could certainly rise into a regional conflict or beyond, in my view. And I don't think Iran is ready for that or has the military or the diplomatic capability to do something of that scale. So they should be very careful in what they do next.
Yeah, I think you make a very important point, General, because based on the briefings I've been having here, if Iran were to do a direct assault on Israel and wind up killing a lot of Israeli civilians, especially destroying a lot of buildings in Tel Aviv, where I am right now, attacking military bases, Ben Gurion Airport, the internet.
Let the man live, bro. That shit is fucked up. They shipped his ass out there. I mean, I bet he loves it. He lives for this shit. That's crazy, man. Where I am right now.
You know, we know that this tension on the northern border of Israel is really ultimately coming from its southern border in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. And there, Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to need to architect not just the combat operations that marginalize Hamas and prevent it from ever being part of a post-war governance solution, but also architecting the security, the economic development, the education vision that will allow Hamas to be drained of its political capital. Because Sinwar is clearly not afraid of destruction, but he is terrified of reconstruction.
Yeah.
Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Some will see.
Well, you guys will show him if you do a ceasefire. You know what I mean? Imagine if they did a ceasefire. Ooh, he'd hate that. You should do that then.
Hostage release program as offering a green light.
He's so scared. He's so scared of, like, no longer permanent genocide to the Palestinian population.
In terms of the group wanting to reach a deal
show them
as quickly as possible. How do you see all of this unfolding?
I'm not sure I see that many chess moves behind it. I think Hamas is a terrorist organization that's broken 5 previous ceasefires and has as part of its charter the destruction of Jews in Israel. Try to negotiate to realize that vision. Hamas only has a negative vision, the destruction of another people. And so negotiation just isn't in their charter. So this is really the baseline from Hamas. I think it's true that there is...
Dude, I fucking hate mainstream media. I fucking hate mainstream media, bro.
We need to stand with Israel again, like we did in April, where the United States, Arab states, and European states worked with Israel to shoot down those Iranian.
Bro, instead of Wolf, they should ship his bitch ass to Tel Aviv if you want to defend Israel that bad, okay?
Israel's Iron Dome system, that anti-missile system, has now
but
been
don't they say that? No, they don't. That doesn't make any sense. They've literally had ceasefire deals that they've put together with Israel time and time again. What the f are you talking about? They're literally in the process of executing one, and Israel keeps killing everybody. It doesn't even make any goddamn sense to say, like, oh, Hamas doesn't want to do negotiations. Is like Israel killed the principal negotiator last week.
With Israel as it defends from rocket or precision-guided munition attacks from Iran, from Hezbollah, from Hamas. 2, don't allow Israel to miss the opportunity that it missed in April. Because Wolf, as you know, as you saw firsthand, after that successful April consortium of Arab, European, and American states shooting down those Iranian drones, Israel did not then take that diplomatic momentum and channel it towards reconstruction in Gaza. It did not channel it it towards an alternative to Hamas in the Strip. If Iran is going to attack again, if we are successful again in shooting down those missiles, and those are two big ifs, I grant that, the United States needs to put significant pressure on Netanyahu to then channel that momentum towards a positive vision for Gaza that can contest Hamas's negative vision.
How? What's the pressure?
And what's your reaction to this latest report, Congressman, that pro-Iranian proxies forces inside Iraq are now threatening U.S. troops in Iraq, and there are still U.S. troops remaining in Iraq right now, if the U.S. uses Iraqi airspace to launch any counterstrike against Iran?
It underscores the volatility of the region and, of course, Iran's tentacles within Iraq. This was one of the core strategic miscalculations of Bush's invasion of Iraq, is that it actually kicked down an important regional counterweight to Iran's influence and turned a counterweight into a proxy force for Iran's influence, which has reverberated over the last 15 years. I don't think the United States, though, can flinch because of those threats from proxy terror forces in Iraq. If Iraq attacks Israel, the United States is going.
By the way, no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans on this. No difference in the language. We must not cave or capitulate the terrifying forces of barbaric Muslims. That's it. That's the one line.
To our viewers,
bipartisan consensus on this.
We'll be right
permanent third world genocide. Nothing short of that. And there's always bipartisan consensus. Always bipartisan consensus on this matter. I honestly think if you want to defend Israel so bad, like, you should be able to do so. There's like, oh yeah, we got to do everything we can to make sure we don't back away from the Iranian threat in the region. It's like, bro, there's one threat in the region. It's Israel. These are people. These are human beings. They're not like operating. Even Israel itself is not operating on like pure bloodlust, okay? Even though it does seem like it at times because of the amount of death and destruction that they're engaging in. There are obviously genuine interests that play a role beyond just permanent death and destruction. In terms of like in a conversation between Iran and Israel, or a conversation between Hezbollah and Israel, or a conversation between Hamas and Israel, though, one side's motivation is significantly less about permanent death and destruction and bloodlust than the other. And I'm not talking about Israel in this situation.
National airport outside of Tel Aviv. Israel would respond with enormous military force against Iran, something the Israelis believe the Iranians would deliberately, desperately try to avoid, but they won't be able to do so. So we'll see if this explodes into that type of regional war. Aaron, this forthcoming attack from Iran, as is now expected against Israel.
It kind of has to be in America's case, don't it? How would dialectics or whatever make foreign policy more coherent or sensible? Not just curious. I want to learn. Easy answer. It's called wealth extraction, whether in the form of natural resources that you like occupy and control, or the extraction of labor power in a country or a region, specifically the third world, the entirety of the global south, that you keep in a dire set of economic circumstances, so they are desperate for any kind of opportunities that they can get. It's just theft. It's land theft. It's natural resource theft. It's controlling key trade routes. Like, these are all very significant material reasons as to why countries move in the way that they do. The fascism, or the story that you tell for the actions that your state engages in, is just that, a story. Nationalism, Zionism, like, these are all fascism in general. These are all stories that you tell your population. And, you know, they're very wonderful stories that have the capacity to create an endless cycle of bloodshed or justify an endless cycle of bloodshed. But ultimately, that's all it is. Religion is another aspect of this. But at the end of the day, the entire purpose for this kind of death and destruction is always about some kind of material extraction. For America, it's pretty easy to understand. It's just our war economy. Our defense contractors make out like bandits. We're also removed, like, we are so far removed from the actual impact of the war that it doesn't really bother us that much. That's why we get to dominate the entire world. We get to operate colonies everywhere, and we don't see like the negative consequences. We don't even see the immigration from it. Europe gets to deal with the immigration. We don't even deal with it.
2020 helped fuel the rage that led
to no way. They're not even going back to Israel. God damn.
Is in response to the killing of a top Hamas leader who was in Tehran. Obviously, there's more to come here, but how has that already impacted the region altogether?
You know, I think it has in several ways. Yahya Sinwar Wolf has now been elevated to the head of Hamas, which is something, frankly, we all knew from the beginning, that he's the major decision maker. I will say, though, that Mark General raises a critically important point, and that is the Hezbollah piece of it. it takes 12 minutes for a cruise missile to impact in Israel, assuming it's not intercepted, launched from Iran. We're talking a minute and a half, well, probably less time for Hezbollah's high trajectory weapons and its precision guided munitions to strike Israel proper. The real damage here, frankly, is not going to come from Iran. It's going to come from Hezbollah. But I really do believe that both, and again, John Hertling's right, I don't think Hezbollah nor Tehran is interested in the kind of strike that would trigger a massive Israeli response. A response, I might add, Wolf, and the Iranians know this, that could easily draw in the United States. The question is, will they be able to navigate the fine line between doing something that is significant, but not triggering the regional escalation that would create something the Middle East, Wolf, has never seen before? A genuine multi-front war involving Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Israel, and perhaps even an Israeli and U.S. military involvement against Iran.
Yeah, it's a really, really dangerous situation right now. General Hertling, before I let you go, I want to close with a quick question on Ukraine right now, which is seeing some serious deterioration as well. The Ukrainian government claims that Russian troops set fire near the Zaporizhia nuclear plant in Ukraine. What's your read on that situation? How dangerous is it unfolding right now?
Yeah, I've been watching the Ukrainian front for the last 7 days and have been amazed, Wolf. This fire that's occurring at the Zaporizhia power plant, I believe, in all intelligence, at least all.
This is madness. Like, how bad? Oh my God. I know it's like not relevant to the main point of contention here, but goddamn.
Open source intelligence is saying that it's the result of a tire fire inside or near the smokestack or the stack of the nuclear power plant. That is to distract, and it's a Russian way of doing distraction. Remember, Russia has control of that power plant. They have forces in the area. There are IAEA members there as well saying what's happening. They say all radiation is safe still, but they are very concerned. They've been saying that for months. But the fact that Russia would start a tire fire to envelop smoke into the area and indicate that something's going on is just another approach by Mr. Putin to conflict what's going on in this area and cause more danger to not only Ukraine, but also the entire region.
Let me follow up, General. What do you make of the Ukrainian incursion into Russia? We're now told some 20 miles Ukrainian forces have moved inside Russia.
Yeah, it's been fascinating for me, Wolf. First, I thought this was a raid. They have conducted these kind of cross-border raids with small forces in the past. It now appears to be more of a demonstration. I certainly wouldn't call it an offensive yet. The key is going to be, can they sustain this fight? When you put that many forces, and there's apparently 2 brigades or more of Ukrainian forces that have gone across the border, not just of Kursk, but also in Belgorod, you need a lot of logistics for an armored force that goes 20 kilometers.
How the fuck are they going to do that?
In there 7 days. They need water, fuel, ammunition, supplies, parts. So we'll see how long they're in there. They have taken a lot of prisoners. Estimates are over a couple of hundred Russian prisoners that have already been taken. And there are some indications of movement of Russian reinforcements into the area to counter it. There's no proof of that just yet. The fighting has not been intense other than beyond the border guards and the forces that were in the area. So this is Ukraine saying we can do the same thing. The other thing that I'd point out, Wolf, is indications are that it's Western style vehicles, the ones that have been given to Ukraine, that are conducting most of this attack. And one of the things that I find most fascinating is, having been a Stryker brigade commander, it appears that Strykers are in the areas. They move fast, they're very mobile, they're very quiet, and they're exactly fitted for this kind of operation that would be a quick strike inside of a country and then a pullback very quickly.
I mean, there is a reason why America was like holding back, or at least telling Ukraine not to utilize American weaponry in anything that passes the boundaries of the Ukrainian nation, right? The Ukrainian national boundaries. Once America was like, okay, maybe we'll let you strike certain targets inside of Russian airspace in an effort to help prevent like any any kind of logistic help that Russia gets from inside of Russia on the border towns, all of a sudden they're using American machines to strike inside of Russia. I feel like that's an escalation ultimately of it's an escalation that brings America closer to what Putin might consider a violation. I don't know. I don't know if this will be successful in terms of, like, maybe they should annex it. Maybe they should do a democratic vote on the Russian population there to see if they're interested in being permanently annexed by Ukraine, and then they can do a little swaparoo, you know what I mean? I don't know what the they're thinking. Ukraine said it won't. Yeah, Ukraine Mia. Doesn't that just make it easier for Putin and Russia to set up false flag situation with headlines about U.S. weapons in Russia, etc.? I know the goal is to divert manpower from the southeastern front, but considering the nature of the assault, doesn't that also shut them off completely from this is a suicide mission? You know what I mean? Like, it's a suicide mission for the 300 troops that went in. Like, is it? Yes. Like, I feel like it is. I mean, it's like a reverse Uno, a YOLO, a last ditch effort.